Before, this TV show had never caused so much trouble. All in the Family turned family comedy into fights with other people. Then came the episode where Edith Bunker had to deal with something she could never have imagined. The CBS was scared. Before it aired, the network had to set up private screenings for doctors and cops. Local stations said they would not broadcast if the station wasn't paid. Production stopped for almost a month while officials thought about ending the show for good. When it finally came out, 40 million people watched it, and it changed TV forever. This is the whole story behind that scene. The whole thing began with a British show about a father and son who had a rough time getting along. He said that he got the idea for All in the Family from reading about a British show called Till Death Us Do Part. It made him think of how his dad would tell his mom to hold it together while she called him the laziest white man she had ever seen. These words would become famous in the history of American TV, but something strange happened in 2025. The actress who played Gloria on the show, Sally Struthers, said that Carol O'Connor found the British show while she was in the UK. She said that he himself told Lear about the idea, but it was later not given to him. She didn't tell anyone the story until Lear died, which took decades, before letting it slip. That made people question everything they knew about how the show started. There were some rough spots on the way to TV. The first show was made for ABC in late 1968. It was called Justice for All. Archie Justice was played by Carol O'Connor. Edith, his wife, was played by Jean Stapleton. But ABC changed their minds. At about the same time, they had just ended Turn On, a crazy and rude sketch show. They didn't want to do anything too risky after just one show. So Lear's pilot had no chance. The idea wasn't dead yet though. ABC asked to try again. Lear's made a second version very quickly. It was called Those Were the Days, and it was shot on February 16, 1969. Even though O'Connor and Stapleton were back, Gloria and her husband were played by different actors. ABC still left though. Lear's looked at a few different ones. It looked for a moment like it might be made into a movie instead of a TV show. But then CBS came along. They had a problem, even though CBS was a huge hit at the time. People in rural areas, like those who watched Green Acres and the Beverly Hillbillies, mostly watched their hits. What advertisers didn't want was that they wanted people from cities who were younger and had money to watch. CBS began cutting their country shows in 1971. Someone from Green Acres joked that they skipped anything with a tree in it. That's when All in the Family had its chance. Once CBS tried to buy the American rights to Till Death Us Do Part so that they could make a movie with Jackie Gleason, but Lear got them first. It was thought that Gleason, Tom Bosley, or Jack Warden would play the role. Mickey Rooney was even the first person to be given the part, but he turned it down. He believed that the show would kill Norman Lear. He warned him, "They're going to shoot you in the street." Rooney told Lear that the character was not American and that the show would fail. It wasn't. Instead, Carol O'Connor got him the part that would make him famous for life. Lear didn't initially choose O'Connor, but once he got the part, he nailed it. It was said that Lear saw O'Connor in a war play and fell in love with his expressive face. But once more, Struthers dropped a big secret in 2025. She said O'Connor had seen the British version first and brought it to Lear with the goal of becoming the show's star. Her story is that he never got credit for helping to make the show. That claim added yet another twist to the story of one of the most famous TV figures. Edith was played by Jean Stapleton, who gave a show that had a lot of sharp edges, some heart. Lear saw her on stage in Damn Yankees. The role was hard for most women to nail, but Stapleton saw Edith as more than just Archie's pity party. Edith did have times of strength, lines that cut through Archie's bluster. She knew that. Stapleton was born in New York in 1923 and had been playing on stage for years before TV came calling. For the part, she won 3 Emmys and 2 Golden Globes. From the very beginning, in the first pilot in 1968, she was there with O'Connor, playing a role that would become one of the most beloved TV moms of all time. Rob Reiner, who played Michael Meathead Stivic, also had a tough time. He first tried out for the ABC test phase but was turned down. After that, he got a job writing for Andy Griffith's short-lived show Headmaster. He played a teacher who was seeing a student who was also a student. Lear was interested in the part even though it was dangerous. Reiner said Lear gave him another chance because he saw that he had grown up. When CBS took over the show, Reiner and Struthers were cast as Mike and Gloria for the 3rd time. Reiner got 2 Emmys for the part, but he had bigger plans all along. He then became a director and made movies like When Harry Met Sally, This Is Spinal Tap, and The Princess Bride. The actress Sally Struthers, who played Gloria, also had problems. Her birth year was 1947 and she had just been fired from the Tim Conway Comedy Hour before she went on the show. They talked about how she never really liked Lear and how she once asked why she was picked over Penny Marshall, who looked more like Edith on paper. Lear told her it was because her face was fat and her eyes were blue. It seemed more real to him that the father and daughter were close. Struthers won 2 Emmys for her role, but by season 5 she was ready to leave. She tried to get out of her deal for $40,000 but failed. For 3 more years she stayed. 2 other actors had played the part before her. She was the last and third Gloria. When the first episode of All in the Family aired on January 12, 1971, no one thought it would change TV forever. They were clean, safe, and friendly back then. Friends and family laughed, jokes were light, and troubles in real life were kept off screen. But Norman Lear thought the US was ready for more. A British show called Till Death Us Do Part gave him ideas. It was scary for CBS because he wanted to bring the same raw energy to American TV. Before Robert D. Wood became president of CBS, ABC had already said no. But he took a risk, and everything changed. At 9:30 p.m. the first show aired. Tuesday. It was only watched by 15% of people. They even hired extra people to answer the phones in case upset fans called to complain. But what happened next was way beyond what they thought would happen. In just 1 year, 50 million Americans watched every week. It wasn't only a joke. There were problems between generations that could be seen in the rough, honest image. Archie Bunker, who was loud, set in his ways, and stubborn, argued with Mike, his liberal son-in-law, about almost everything. But neither of them was always correct. That was very smart. There were no simple answers on the show. It showed messy fights between real people over real problems. What it talked about wasn't afraid of being tough. The whole family took care of everything. Some of these are racism, anti-Semitism, abortion, rape, menopause, divorce, and the Vietnam War. One show was about Edith's cousin who had been seeing a lesbian for years without telling anyone. Another showed white supremacists breaking into the Bunker's house because they thought the people living there were Jewish. Archie told everyone that his own father used to lock him in a room in a scene that will never be forgotten. It showed why he was biased. It didn't make him right, but it did make him human. That's what made the show great. It wasn't a sermon. People thought about it. CBS didn't know what to do with it at first. Because they were scared of the backlash, they put a warning before each show. It told people that the show's point was to make fun of bias to show how wrong it is. But there was just as much stress off screen as there was on screen. The Norman Lear fought the CBS editors all the time. God damn it, he couldn't say that in the pilot. CBS tried to move the show to a different time at one point. Lear took them to court. That was how bad it got. Even so, the show became a huge hit. It was the most watched show in America from 1971 to 1976, that had never been done on any other show. It won Best Comedy Series 4 times in a row. It got 22 Emmys altogether. Was put forward 74 times. A lot of wins went to Carol O'Connor, who played Archie. The show California Here We Are in 1979 was one of his biggest. In the same year, 40.2 million people watched the show's end. The story didn't end there. It kept going. It took 9 years and 205 shows to make All in the Family. Then it changed into Archie Bunker's place and ran for 4 more years. During that time, the Bunkers took in a foster child. Jillian and Mike moved. Archie bought a bar. The show kept getting better. It also led to 5 spin-offs, one of which, The Jeffersons, ran for 11 seasons, longer than the original. All in the Family created a world on TV that had never been seen before by the time it finished. But on Christmas Day 1976, things may have gone off the charts the most. The name of the show was The Draft Dodger. David Brewster was a young guy who had run away to Canada to avoid fighting in Vietnam. David wasn't seen as a bad guy. Stay cool, think about what you say, and be honest. Mike asked him to join him for Christmas dinner without telling Archie. There was also Archie's friend Pinky Peterson, whose son had died in the war. The fight was very rough. David tried to explain his decisions. Archie was very angry. Mike stood up for him and said that what David did was brave. One of the tensest scenes of the show's history. But there was something wrong. At a very important time, Archie said, "I don't want to talk about that evil war any longer." CBS freaked out. They made the line change. It turned into that awful war. The overdub was also clear. Lear was very angry. The change took away from the scene's dramatic power, but the show still hit hard after the cut. It had 34.5 million watchers, which was the most of any show that season. It couldn't have been a better time for the show. Jimmy Carter had won the election for president only a few weeks before. As part of his campaign, he said he would forgive all picked Dodgers. He did it 27 days after the draft Dodger aired. On his first full day in office, January 21, 1977, Carter made Proclamation 4483, which was a full pardon. All of a sudden, people like the made-up David Brewster could come home. About 50,000 real Americans were living outside of America. That one TV show showed the exact moment the country turned a page. American TV changed for good on February 19, 1972. It took place in All in the Family Season 2, Episode 21. Sammy's Visit is the name of the show. It looked easy to set up at first. In his role as himself, Sammy Davis Jr. left his briefcase in Archie Bunker's taxi. He went to Archie's house to get it back. What happened next, though, shocked the whole country and made TV history. Archie Bunker was already known as the TV figure who was most openly racist. The coloreds were some of the words he used, and had a racist view of the world. When one of the most famous black artists in America walked into Archie's house, people knew something bad was about to happen, but they didn't expect what did. Sammy Davis Jr. himself came up with the idea for the show. In 1972, he said on The Tonight Show that he wanted to be on all of the family shows. Author Bill Dana planned a plot that would put Sammy and Archie in touch with each other. Norman Lear, who created the show, was afraid it would seem like a stunt, but the idea was too good to pass up. Sammy was scared when the movie started. He even asked for cue cards, but John Rich, the director, said no. The rules for everyone to act were the same. As the cameras rolled, Sammy said every line with conviction. He didn't even blink when Archie said one of his regular racist things. I fought back with sharp quips and dry wit. People really liked it. Sammy later said, yes, it did. Even though Archie tried to be polite, his true feelings kept coming to the surface. That stress reached a boiling point. After that came the last part. The kiss didn't seem romantic. People didn't expect it, and it was strong. Sammy turned around and kissed Archie on the face right before he left. The crowd exploded. They laughed, clapped, and cheered for one whole second. A TV response that went on for a long time. In charge John Rich said the laugh had to be cut down because it went on for too long. He talked about it this way. He's kissing you now. When we went inside, Archie looked shocked. After that, everyone in the crowd went crazy. But right now, wasn't just amusing. What they said was very brave. In 1972, it was unheard of for a black man to kiss a white man on American TV. What made it even worse was that it was Archie Bunker who is known for being racist. 5 years before, the U.S. Supreme Court finally overturned rules that made it illegal for people of different races to get married. That was the case of Loving versus Virginia in 1967. Before that, rules in 16 states still didn't let black and white people get married. That's why those old hurts were still raw when Sammy kissed Archie. On TV, people of different races had kissed before. Captain Kirk kissed Lieutenant Uhura on Star Trek in 1968. People, especially in the South, sent hate mail about that moment. Think about how angry people would be if two guys, one black and one white, talked about touching each other on national TV. It was just going to be another birthday. Over 40 million people in the United States watched All in the Family on October 16, 1977. That night, they didn't just watch a comedy. It was a big event in culture. Edith Bunker, played by Jean Stapleton, turned 50. People laughed at the start of the show. A special party was being planned by her family. Edith was by herself at home. Waiting, someone rang her doorbell. He said that he worked for the cops. He told lies. He wasn't there to keep anyone safe. He was dangerous. Detective Lambert was his name, but he was a bad guy. Tension built up slowly. Edith tried not to get upset. To get him to wait, she talked on the phone, rambled, and did everything else. Then Archie came in for a short time to get a punch bowl. The guy hid in the closet. He told Edith in a whisper that he would kill them both if she said one word. The oven's timer went off. He heard Edith say that the party cake was on fire. He let her go. She didn't just take the cake. She took her one chance. She hit him in the face with the hot pan and then ran away. A few minutes later, at her surprise party, she passed out in Archie's arms. The crowd was shocked. There were tears instead of laughs. It was a show that saved the day. There was a reason for this choice. Norman Lear, who made the show, had a goal, would like to show that sexual abuse doesn't just happen in alleys or to young women. It could happen to anyone, even Edith. In fact, it would most likely happen to Edith. Gail Aberbell is the head of the Rape Treatment Center in Santa Monica. Lear got in touch with her. He asked her one thing: what would you tell 40 million people about rape if you had the chance? She didn't just say yes, she went into the room for writers. She sat with them and changed parts of the story, shaped the story, made sure it was true and not just a story. Lear even took the idea from another show and gave it to Edith because he thought it would make a bigger difference. After the cake, the story wasn't over. The next week, part 2 of the show aired. It showed Edith having a hard time, crying and hiding. She didn't want to tell anyone about it. She felt bad about herself. She had doubts, but she made up her mind in the end. She knew who the man was. She didn't do it to get back at him, but to keep him from hurting someone else. Executives at CBS were tense behind the scenes. Advertisers said they might stop. Conservative radio and TV stations in the area didn't want to run it. It was 9 p.m. family time. The plan was for this to be a comedy show, but Lear wouldn't give up. He moved forward. CBS set up private viewings for doctors, police, and therapists a long time before the show aired. Professionals were asked to learn what people think and how they react, what to do to help. Newspapers wouldn't run what the story was really about. They just wrote that Edith was having a hard time. People in the crowd knew though, and they kept watching. All in the Family wasn't just the most popular show that year. The country used it as a screen to avoid facing the hard truth. Carroll O'Connor was at the center of this storm. It was him who played Archie Bunker, the loud, stubborn, old-fashioned man whose ideas were out of date. However, O'Connor was not like that at all. He thought in groups. He had faith in people. He was ready to stop everything to show it. In 1974, there was a strike at CBS. Maintenance workers were holding a protest. O'Connor didn't think about it. He wasn't going to cross the line. The movie stopped. He told the press, "I've been a union man all my life. I'm not going to break a strike." It wasn't a small protest. He was the star of the show that everyone in the US watched the most. He then left. O'Connor and Norman Lear did not get along well. They fought a lot over plots, money, and other things. She didn't hold back O'Connor. He said Lear was trying to hurt his image. Lear thought O'Connor had too many needs. Yet they worked even though it was hard, because there was more at stake. He even said that the show could go on without him in one interview. He said that a lot is going on in the Bunker house before Archie gets home. It wasn't just a trick. The producers had talked about writing him out, but he wasn't scared. If the reason was right, he was ready to walk. It wasn't the first time, when CBS tried to replace skilled techs with machines in 1972. They were met with 8 weeks of strikes. O'Connor was there with them. Despite their offer, he refused to work with them. The episodes were late. People waited. It didn't matter to O'Connor. The actor who played Archie Bunker was not at all like the real person. He taught at a college. He read philosophy and fought for workers' rights and justice. He also knew who Archie was. He once said that he was a sad man, filled with hate. That's why he played him so well. He knew what it meant to be stupid. When Edith's 50th birthday show aired, O'Connor and Lear had fought, made up and changed television together. They turned a comedy into a way to move people around. They talked about racism and sexism, first violence and now sexual assault. They were not nice about it either. They went right for it. In January 2025, Sally Struthers dropped a bomb that no one saw coming. On the podcast Let's Talk About That, she said something that changed the history of one of the most famous shows in the United States. She said that Norman Lear didn't really make everyone in the family. Who was it? Carroll O'Connor. Yes, it was Archie Bunker himself who first wanted to bring the British show Till Death Us Do Part to American TV. Struthers said Lear lied about being the author for 52 years and only told the truth after he died in December 2023. At 101 years old, it was a big claim that turned the story on its head. O'Connor did more than just act. Old interviews say that he rewrote the whole pilot by hand and even recorded all of the parts himself. Archie, Edith, Mike, and even the kid from next door. On the tape he sent, he played every sound. After that, Lear took it and made it into the play. Even after many years, Lear said something shocking on the Mike Douglas show. He looked at O'Connor and said, This guy right here was the best writer this show has ever had. O'Connor was shocked by what was said. Who said Lear was never good at giving credit, there's more. The British version was seen by O'Connor while she was in London. Howard Adelman, a director, bought the rights first, but O'Connor worked hard to get it made for American TV. He not only helped shape Archie Bunker's character, but he also gave him a voice and an attitude. In real life, he had a New York accent and was from the middle class. Being there. Even Lear himself said that O'Connor's attitude set the mood. She didn't think the show would work back then though. In his contract he asked for a bus ticket back to Rome in case it didn't work out. His backup plan was that, but instead the show was the most watched show in the US for 5 years in a row. Struthers didn't say anything about this for many years. But she felt free to talk after Lear died. She didn't just say that Lear stole her work in that podcast conversation. She said he didn't let her into parties, was rude to her, and once told her, "We hired you because you have blue eyes and a fat face just like Carol O'Connor." She was so hurt that she hired lawyers to get out of the deal. In the 1970s, that was a huge amount of money. She spent about $40,000 trying to get off the show. Because she lost the case, she had to keep being Gloria. Later, she went back to work for Archie Bunker and had her own show called Gloria. The cuts never got better though. Struthers said those words would always bother her. Behind the scenes, Lear and O'Connor were having a lot of trouble with each other. It was okay. In 1974, O'Connor quit her job and sued. He said Lear broke his word. His contract gave him writing credit and power over the script. He didn't get either though. Back then, he made $25,000 per show, which is about $137,000 now. It wasn't fixed by money though. Lear wrote about O'Connor's anger in his 2014 autobiography. In one show, The Elevator Story, O'Connor wouldn't do anything. Archie was stuck in an elevator with a Hispanic woman who was about to give birth. It made O'Connor cry on set. He said he didn't like the episode or the show. Was mean to Lear. Lear didn't want to give in because he thought the show's theme would die if he did. In the end, O'Connor came back and the show won an Emmy. Lear said he couldn't see anyone else playing Archie even though they had fights. He once said that the first time he saw O'Connor try out, he thought, "Oh my God, this is Archie." He said it was so worth it, even after all the trouble. The show talked about everything. American TV had never dared to talk about racism, sexism, homosexuality, abortion, rape, or puberty. It made people uncomfortable. It changed history. But it also made the people who made it tired. O'Connor was a liberal man who acted like a racist bigot. He taught English before. He stood for fairness, even though he didn't agree with the words, he had to say them. He often had disagreements with the story writers. It wasn't easy to carry the emotional weight of that part. And the fight wasn't just between the writers. There were cracks in the cast. At the same time, Struthers talked about Betty White on the show and called her passively aggressive. White told her she didn't need a cookie while they were filming a game show. Struthers thought about that one moment, that little jab, for years.